The world held its breath in the summer of 2025. Tensions had been high for months, with diplomatic talks yielding little progress. Despite the unease, most people continued their daily lives, hoping for a peaceful resolution. That fragile hope was shattered on a quiet Tuesday morning. Without any warning, North Korea launched a surprise attack against the United States. The first wave of missiles was not aimed at military bases, but at key infrastructure targets on the West Coast. The goal was clearly to cause chaos and disrupt the American way of life, sending a message of fear across the nation and the world. The initial reports were confusing and filled with disbelief. News channels broke into regular programming with alarming updates. Sirens echoed through cities that had never known the sound of war. The attack was sophisticated, using a combination of long-range ballistic missiles and cyber attacks that targeted power grids and communication networks. For several hours, parts of the country were plunged into darkness and silence, making it difficult for officials to assess the full extent of the damage. It was a coordinated assault designed to cripple the nation before it could even begin to fight back. A bold and terrifying move. This was an unprecedented act of aggression. Never before had North Korea directly targeted the American mainland with such force. The international community watched in horror as the events unfolded. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session, but the immediate focus for the United States was on defense and damage control. First responders worked tirelessly in the affected areas, and the military scrambled to understand the scope of the attack. It was a moment of profound shock and vulnerability for a nation that had long felt secure behind its oceans. The attack was a wake-up call, a stark reminder that distance no longer guaranteed safety in the modern world. The initial shock soon gave way to a sense of national unity and resolve. Across the country, people came together to support one another, demonstrating resilience in the face of adversity. The American people, though shaken, were not broken. The government in Washington, D.C., operating from secure locations, began to formulate a response. The question was not if the United States would retaliate, but how and when. The world waited to see how the superpower would react to this direct assault on its sovereignty. The United States did not wait long to answer. Within 24 hours, the president addressed the nation and the world, vowing a swift and decisive response. The U.S. military, a force with unparalleled global reach, was fully mobilized. The first phase of the counterattack, codenamed Operation Iron Resolve, focused on neutralizing North Korea's ability to launch further attacks. Stealth bombers like the B-2 Spirit took off from bases in the continental U.S. and from Allied territories. They flew undetected through enemy airspace, targeting missile launch sites, command and control centers, and key military installations with precision-guided munitions. Simultaneously, the U.S. Navy and its allies established a tight naval blockade around the Korean peninsula. Aircraft carriers, destroyers, and submarines formed an impenetrable ring, cutting off all maritime trade and preventing any North Korean naval vessels from leaving their ports. This move was critical to isolating the regime and preventing it from receiving supplies or moving its forces by sea. The blockade was a powerful demonstration of American naval supremacy and its ability to project power across the globe. It effectively put the entire country under siege without a single soldier having to set foot on its soil. The technological superiority of the U.S. military was on full display. Cyber warfare units launched a massive counter-offensive, disabling North Korea's military communication networks and overwhelming their air defense systems. This created confusion within the North Korean High Command and made it much harder for them to coordinate their remaining forces. Drones and surveillance aircraft provided real-time intelligence, allowing American commanders to make informed decisions and strike targets with incredible accuracy. The response was a symphony of modern warfare, combining air, sea, and digital power to systematically dismantle the enemy's war-making capability. The speed and intensity of the American counterattack overwhelmed North Korea's defenses. Much of their offensive arsenal was destroyed in the first 48 hours of the operation. The regime, which had started the conflict with such a bold strike, now found itself on the defensive, isolated, and under relentless pressure. The message from the United States was clear: an attack on its soil would be met with overwhelming force. The initial shock of the North Korean strike was now replaced by the awe-inspiring power of the American military response, setting the stage for the next phase of the conflict. With North Korea's long-range capabilities neutralized, the conflict shifted to the Korean peninsula itself. The next phase of the American strategy involved gaining control of the seas and the skies completely. The U.S. Pacific Fleet, alongside naval forces from South Korea and Japan, engaged the remnants of the North Korean Navy. The battles at sea were short and one-sided. Advanced American destroyers and fighter jets launched from aircraft carriers easily outmatched the older, less sophisticated North Korean vessels. Within days, the waters around the peninsula were firmly under Allied control, paving the way for further action. The air war was equally decisive. American F-22 Raptors and F-35 Lightning IIs established total air superiority, shooting down any North Korean aircraft that dared to take to the skies. With the air cleared of threats, Allied forces could operate with impunity. This allowed for a sustained bombing campaign against military bases, supply depots, and leadership bunkers across North Korea. The constant pressure from the air began to break the will of the North Korean military, whose soldiers found themselves cut off, without orders, and under constant threat of attack from an enemy they could not see. The final stage of the military operation involved a limited ground offensive. U.S. Marines, supported by armored divisions, conducted amphibious landings at key strategic locations along the North Korean coast. Their objective was not a full-scale occupation, but to secure critical military facilities and dismantle the regime's remaining power structures. These landings were successful, meeting with disorganized and sporadic resistance. The Allied forces quickly established secure zones, effectively taking control of important coastal territories. This was a significant development, as it marked the first time foreign troops had established a foothold in North Korea in decades. This new land, secured by the U.S. and its allies, became a crucial strategic asset. These territories, once home to North Korean missile sites and naval bases, were transformed into forward operating bases for the Allied coalition. This gave the United States a permanent strategic presence in the region, ensuring that the regime could never again threaten its neighbors or the world. The acquisition of this overseas territory was not a planned outcome of the war, but a direct result of the need to ensure long-term security and stability. It was a tangible symbol of North Korea's defeat and the establishment of a new military reality on the peninsula. In the end, the conflict was shorter than many had feared, but its consequences were immense. With its military shattered and its leadership in disarray, the North Korean regime collapsed. The United States and its allies were left with the difficult task of managing the aftermath. The newly secured territories were placed under a provisional Allied administration. The immediate priority was to provide humanitarian aid to the civilian population and to begin the long, arduous process of disarming the entire country, ensuring every last weapon of mass destruction was found and dismantled under international supervision. For the United States, the victory came at a cost, but ultimately reaffirmed its position as the world's leading military power. However, the conflict also changed its foreign policy. The nation adopted a more proactive stance on defense, realizing that new threats required new strategies. The new overseas territories in the Korean peninsula became a cornerstone of this new policy, serving as a permanent base to ensure stability in East Asia. This new posture sent a clear message to other potential adversaries around the globe. American resolve was stronger than ever, and its reach was truly global. For the people of the former North Korea, the end of the war marked the beginning of a new and uncertain chapter. After decades of living under oppressive rule, they were suddenly faced with a new reality. The international community, led by the United States and South Korea, began a massive effort to rebuild the nation's infrastructure and establish a new, democratic government. The road ahead would be long and challenging, filled with the difficulties of reunifying a people who had been separated by ideology and war for more than 70 years. The hope was for a single, peaceful, and prosperous Korea to finally emerge. The world was fundamentally changed by the short, intense conflict. The global balance of power had shifted, and new alliances were forged in the fire of the war. The United Nations was given a renewed sense of purpose in overseeing the transition on the Korean peninsula. The conflict served as a sobering lesson for the entire world about the dangers of unchecked aggression in the 21st century. It demonstrated that while peace is always the goal, a readiness to defend it with strength and determination is sometimes the only way to preserve it for future generations. The world that emerged was different, and the hope was that it would be safer.